I wonder, is anybody excited tonight? Does anybody have anybody at home, children or grandchildren, who might be a little bit excited tonight? Perhaps you expect to find them still awake when you get home after service. I think perhaps because we are all expecting a visitor tonight. And as we get there, I have a photograph, and I wonder if, when you see this, if you can tell me who this person is. Are we looking good? We're getting there. Any adults excited as the kids are for tomorrow morning? A few may be excited for getting out of here tonight and the activities that we get to enjoy together as families as well. Sometimes Christmas Eve is just as much fun as Christmas Day. And so on this next slide, we have a photograph, and I wonder, as we all expect a visitor tonight, if perhaps anyone can identify this man. I see no hands. Well, of course the ones in first service can identify him. They're being so kind to not give it all away. The kids that I spoke to in our first service, of course, immediately said they thought it might be Santa Claus or St. Nicholas. In fact, this man's name is Henry. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Perhaps you've heard of him. He may look like Santa, but he's actually a famous American poet. Some may say he may be the greatest of all American poets. Henry was born over 200 years ago, and he lived through a very dark period in our country known as the Civil War. It was a sad and scary time in our country's history. And Henry was sad on a Christmas day when he put pen to paper and wrote a poem. You see, he had just a couple of years before lost his beloved wife Fanny in a tragic, terrible fire. And his son Charles had enlisted in the Union Army against his wishes, and just weeks before, Henry got word that his son Charles had been shot by a Confederate bullet pretty severely. And so, like Henry, I think we may know some people this year who feel sad or scared at Christmas time this year. In this next picture, we see the bell of one of our sister churches in California that just recently lost their entire church building to the wildfires in California. And this is their Christmas bell. But their faith is so evident in the words that they posted with this picture, and they said, "This bell will ring again, for God is not done with us." So they may have lost their building just weeks before Christmas, but their faith holds firm. Some people are sad because they have lost people they love this year, or perhaps people who just can't come home this year. Some are sad because of the people suffering in our country and around the world, and other people who are selfish and violent to them. Some might be sick or home alone for Christmas for the first time. In fact, we have some friends and family members who couldn't be here with us tonight. So this year I've been reading Henry's poem, Christmas Bells. I've been reading it a lot because it has been speaking to some voices that I've been hearing in my heart and my soul. And so I would like to share it with you tonight. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play. And wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And thought how, as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along the unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Till ringing, singing on its way, the world revolved from night to day. A voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then from each black accursed mouth the cannon thundered in the south, and with the sound of carols drowned of peace on earth, goodwill to men. It was as if an earthquake rent the hearthstones of a continent, and made forlorn the households born of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair, I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols ring, of peace on earth, goodwill to men. But the Christmas story, the nativity story that we just read, doesn't have any bells in it. There are angels, though. And those angels give us the first time those Christmas words, those famous Christmas words, peace on earth, goodwill to all. And there is a baby in that Christmas story too. And that little baby carries all of our humanity's hope for peace and goodwill to all. Because that little baby isn't just any little baby. His name is Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. You see, God loved us all so very much that God came to humanity in person to show us the way back into love, peace, hope, joy, and full life. Yes, Henry was sad, though. For hate is strong and mocks the song. We live in a world, don't we, where there are still people who are being mean and hurting one another. And we might look around us like Henry did and see only suffering and sadness. Even though we know that Jesus came to rescue us, we might still feel sad at this time. And then we hear the words, then rang the bells more loud and deep. Because you see, the truth of hope ringing out is stronger than any sadness or suffering. When the bells ring out, I hope that you will remember that they are ringing out and pointing toward hope in Jesus. Remember that joy that Henry found. For God is not dead, nor does God sleep. And perhaps consider this evening. Tonight's the night the world begins anew. You see, not only do we remember tonight that God is not dead, nor does God sleep, but more so that God has come in person to make all things new and to restore us to himself. It may be new to think of Christmas Eve as the night that the world begins again, but this humble, vulnerable infant's birth is the new beginning for all of us. Where humanity failed and fell and suffers violence and despair, God arrives. God's self arrives in person in Jesus to restore the world in a new beginning. And so come darkness, come light. Come new star shining bright. When our eyes waver from Jesus Christ, when we turn to our own power, when we are overwhelmed by the suffering and darkness of the world, we gather together and come in unity to this table, where we also remember how far God's love for us would go, all the way to death, all the way to the horrible death on a cross, and then resurrected again, to life in victory over death. We have victory over death and over suffering, and as the Christmas bells peal and ring, we know that there is hope and joy. And we partake in that tonight at this table. And so my invitation to you, I invite you all. Come wounded in your soul. Come broken. Come whole. Come any way that you know. Come doubting. Come sure. Come fearful to this door. Come and see what love is for. Hallelujah. And so tonight we will partake of the table, and I invite